Hey everyone, today we are going to present our group project for our course Data Science Systems. So our topic is speech synthesis using VALL-E. Starting with me, I am Ankit Kumar 20BD009 and I will be providing you the brief idea about the topic and the dataset used. So our study aims to enhance text-to-speech using a novel neural codec language model named VALL-E. This model leverages discrete codecs obtained from an existing neural audio codec model. In contrast to previous approaches, which treated TTS as a continuous signal regression problem, VALL-E frames TTS as a conditional language modeling task. In this study, we trained the model on an open source dataset named LibraryTTS and generated samples for different audio and text prompts to analyze the performance of the given model. Valley is a language modeling approach for the text-to-speech synthesis. It is built upon the flow matching model, which is Meta's latest advancement on non-autoregressive generative models, when that can learn highly non-deterministic mapping between text and speech. Valley emerges in context learning capabilities and can be used to synthesize high-quality personalized speech with only a 3-second indoor recording of an unseen speaker as an acoustic prompt. LibraryTTS is a multi-speaker English corpus of approximately 585 hours of read English speech at 24 kHz sampling rate, prepared by Haiga Gen with the assistance of Google Speech and Google Brain team members. This dataset is specially prepared for the text-to-speech research. Now, Gurvinder will be continuing after this.
So for the model training, we trained the model on an open source dataset named LibreTTS and generated samples for different audio and text prompts. First, we used a phonemizer to transform the text into phonemes. Phonemes are textual representation of pronunciation of words. It is not same as the alphabets. Different sounds can have different alphabets, but not the same phonemes. For example, the word tomato will have a different phoneme in English and British accent. And this representation helps the downstream model to achieve better results. Afterwards, we have an acoustic model which transforms these phonemes into mil spectrograms, which is a representation of audio in the time x frequency domain. The final stage of this in this conversion is the mil spectrogram to waveform. The waveform is usually sampled at 24 or 48 kilohertz, where each sample is digitized into a 64-bit quantization number. Now over to Shubham.
Okay, coming over the encodec. Encodec is the workhorse behind the valley. In this figure, we can see the encodec architecture. It is an encoder-decoder architecture that learns a condensed representation of audio-visual uh, signal by the task of reconstruction. Let's go over its different parts to understand what's going on under the hood. On the far left, we have our original waveform, which is sampled at 24 by 48 kilohertz, and each sample is represented by 16 beats. The raw signal gets passed into the encoder, which includes 1D convolutional operation for downsampling and a two-layered LSTM for sequence modeling. The output of the encoder is 75 by 150 latent time steps with a depth dimension of 128. The decoder is simply a mirrored version of the encoder using transposed convolutional in order to unsample the latent space and construct an audio waveform. The interesting bit is here of-core quantizer. How does encodec quantize the continuous domain of sound? Using a technique called residual vector quantization, which consists of projecting an input vector into the closest entry of the codebook of any given size. In case of Valley, a codebook is dictionary of vectors of size 1024, where each entry represents a vector of size 128. Our goal in vector quantization is to map a certain vector to the closest vector in the codebook. Thereafter, it can be represented by index of the vector in the codebook. Now, coming to the problem formulation and training of Valley. So Valley contains true transformer models, which are used to process the input data, an autoregressive transformer that attends only to past data, and a non-autoregressive transformer that attends to all points in the time. 8 different codebooks are used in Valley as part of encodec model, where our codebook consists of 1024 entries. The codec from first quantizer are processed by AR model according to the equation 1, the first equation. So in this equation, C represents the generated output as a discrete audio code. C dash is the third second input acoustic prompt. X is the input text as a phoneme sequence. C1 represents data from first quantizer. So the first equation shows that output for the first quantizer is conditioned on the input data and on the previous time steps. In the second equation, we can see generation of codes for quantizer 2 to 8. Unlike the previous case, here the output for each quantizer is conditioned to all the time steps from previous quantizer. Unlike the AR model, this allows parallel generation of all time steps in a single quantizer because it is only dependent on previous quantizer codes and not on the previous time steps of the same quantizer. Now moving to the next part, Rohit will take over.
Hello, this is Rohit here. I'll be discussing the result and inference generated by the model. As mentioned in the original paper, we tried to recreate the whole experiment on the base configuration, while the overall training and validation loss seemed to plateau at 100 epochs. Contrary to the result in the original paper, we found that the speech generated through the non-autoregressive model was more realistic and less noise prone. Now coming to the inference, these are the final waveforms. Valley, like other text-to-speech systems, take phonomized text as input and outputs the matching sound waveforms. In addition, Valley input a prompt method in which a 3-second audio sample is sent into the model as additional input. This enables the model to voice utterance of the input text based on the audio prompt. This way, we are able to synthesize personalized speech using the model Valley. Now, let's listen to the inference generated by the model.
I am a student at IIT while doing my bachelor's in technology with my major in data science and artificial intelligence. If you are passionate and willing to put in work, anything you do is bound to be success.
Here are the match lineups for the Colombia-Haiti match.
Now over to Harshita for the conclusion.
Okay, so our conclusion highlights several key points and outcomes of our study involving the VAL-E language model for text to speech. So let's break down the conclusion into main components. VAL-E novel approach. You empathize that VAL-E takes a unique approach to text to speech by using audio codec codes as intermediate representations. This approach is based on extensive pre-trained on a large amount of speech data. Zero shoot learning success. Our study has demonstrated that impressive capability of VAL-E in shoot scenarios achieving new state of the art results in text to speech using the library TTS dataset. This means that the model can generate speech effectively without prior exposure to specific text or audio inputs. Maintenance of acoustic environment and emotion. While each strength include its ability to maintain the acoustic environment and convey speaker's emotion during synthesis, this feature is crucial for generating natural and emotional rich speech. Versatile output generation. We mentioned that VAL-E can produce unique outputs using different sampling based on decoding methods. This versatility in generating text to speech output is valuable for various applications and user preference. Training challenges acknowledge that training diffusion based models like VAL-E for speech synthesis is resource intensive. Learning experience. Despite the challenge, we consider the training process to be valuable learning experience. It has provided with hands-on experience in working with industry standard models for speech synthesis. So, thank you. Here are the reference for our project.